Hi, everyone. Welcome to Art and Talk. Thank you so much for being with us today. I'm Leslie Sue, the host for Art and Talk. If you're new to Art and Talk is an online interviewing platform for artists to share their art, their creativity, and their passion. On Art and Talk, we're all about meeting artists and being inspired. We aim to dive deep into the heart and mind of each of our artist guests to gain a wider perspective of what their art is about, their message, and their process. Those of you that have been watching Art and Talk for a while, thank you so much for your continued support. All right, so today we're continuing to bring you another artist from the Being Heard, Being Seen exhibit, which is currently on view at the Cultural Council for Palm Beach County in Lake Worth Beach, Florida. We hope that you've had a moment to view some of the other artists that have come on board from the Being Heard, Being Seen exhibit. And as always, we hope you are drawing inspiration from them and enjoying them as well. All right, so today our guest is a mixed media oil painter, and he infuses his art with an urban flair and sophistication. And he has a message that he uses his art as a platform for to bring a voice to equality, to unity, and to diversity. So we'll be looking at a select view of some of his art and diving into his artistic journey. All right, again, thank you so much for being with us. I'd like to welcome our guest for today, Dariel Donovan. Hi, Dariel, welcome.
Hello, hi everyone.
It's great to have you here. So there's so many different places that I would love for us to travel during this interview. Let's just get a little bit, if it's okay with you, Dariel, a little bit of background. You started having an art education pretty early. You went to a high school of the arts. Can you take us back a little bit further and tell us about your passion and your love for art? How did all this come about?
So when I was younger, I would say like maybe my last year in middle school, me and my sister used to like doodle. We was in our heads, we would imagine like we was fashion designers. And then from there, I was just drawing clothes and people. And then I had got like art class in middle school, eighth grade. And one of my teachers saw something in me. I did a sculpture. She gave us like clay and I took it home and I made a sculpture and she just saw something and she said, oh, maybe you should do a class at the Armory Art Center. So I took a class at the Armory Art Center here in West Palm Beach and I met another teacher there and she fell in love with me. She's like, you have to go to Dreyfoos. So she's like, I'm gonna get you prepared to, you can do your audition at Dreyfoos School of the Arts, art high school here in West Palm Beach, Florida. And I did the audition and I got in and the rest is history.
That is so amazing. And it's so it was kind of like starting off with your sister, just kind of like nonchalant, doing these doodles.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden things just start to develop, thankfully, to some teachers that crossed your path that really encouraged you and brought you to a whole new world of exposure of the arts.
Yes, yeah.
And did you dive into this like willingly? Like did you feel, Dario, like early on, since these teachers were, kind of saying like, look, you have talent in this, and to go to a high school of the arts and the things that took place prior to, did you feel like, yeah, this is kind of like my purpose, or what was going on in your mind?
I always, when I was always creating art, I was always having fun with it. So it was very fun to have somebody else look at me and see something that they can see much greater than what I was seeing at the time. That's kind of what sparked the light. So I always was creating, doodling, or making some type of work. Maybe it wasn't artwork per se, but once I got into the art world, the doors opened up for me.
Mhm. And now take us after high school and being exposed to the School of the Arts there. What was taking place after that?
So I got accepted into MSFA. It's a school that's in Boston, the Boston Museum. So I went there for college, and from there I really concentrated on painting. I was doing a little bit of mixed media when I was in high school, not so much. When I moved to Boston, some of my professors kind of wanted me to get away from the mixed media and do purely painting. So I stopped doing the mixed media for a little while, and I was just painting with just oil, learning the old techniques of oil painting. And then I think my last year in college, I was like, I really want to get back into mixed media. I love sewing and using hair and using found materials. So I was like, if I can incorporate this and do it successfully, I want to do it. I think a couple of paintings didn't work so well, and they was like, you got to get rid of that. And I realized I have to make myself happy with my artwork, not to please a professor, because a lot of them, they're very traditional of the way they look at a painting. And even when I first started just doing purely oil painting, my paintings are very thin and a lot of layers, so it looks like airbrush. So the teacher would be like, you got to get more paint on the canvas, and I kind of just stick to my aesthetic, and just like found a way where it was comfortable for me to actually incorporate mixed media into my work.
Right, right. And I really appreciate you, Dariel, sharing, an authentic experience that you were having, in the art school. I mean, you were honoring what the professors were telling you to do, you were being compliant about it, but you were also like kind of in the back burner, it sounds like, your aesthetic, your style was really starting to already develop, and then you just kind of continued on. And then it sounds like upon, close to graduation or afterwards, then you realize, this is where my heart is. Like, you love to do the sewing, you love the mixed media, you were already having this style, it sounds like, already kind of emerging while you were in the School of the Arts.
Yeah. I totally agree.
Yeah. All right, so we have several images to look at. Now, oil painting is just like, that's what you resonate with. You're very proficient in oils, and you have such an interesting style. Can you share a little bit more about that before we take a look at some of your work?
So the oil painting is kind of like the ignition. So I kind of use that to kind of get started, maybe put a ground down on the canvas, get rid of the white, and then go forward. So it's like, and a lot of my paintings kind of like push and pull with drawing and painting, and a lot of merging the figures, like having them morph into each other, and that type of stuff. So I was trying to find a balance between figure and abstraction, and trying to merge the two, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so fascinating, Dariel. So you aim to strike a balance visually between form and abstraction.
Yes.
And so talk to us a little bit more about that, because that's a really fascinating, it's almost like you're trying to find almost like a middle ground. Like, you want to express the form and you want it to be somewhat representational, but you also want to have some abstraction. Talk to us a little bit more about that, if you would.
So that it's like push and pull. I think for me as an artist, I love painting the figure, and I always put in my head, if I can paint a painting of the figure and sell it, I'm like, it's very hard. Figure painting is very hard on the back end of it to sell. Sometimes if the viewers, they don't know the person, they have no connection, it is harder. So I wanted to like merge some abstract with the figure and see if that will kind of help push the paintings to make them more sellable in a way.
Yeah. All right. Let's get a little bit more concrete, and let's take a look at some of your beautiful paintings. So give me a second and we'll pull them up. Okay. So we have this first one. This is from the Cultural Council Being Heard, Being Seen exhibit. Talk to us about this beautiful piece.
Okay, so this one is really cool. I did a painting for another show, and I was working with resin, and I was like, you know what? I want to make molds. So I bought this stuff. It's a brush on mold it's like liquid. It comes in a little tube, and you brush it. I made a clay form for the hair. I made a clay form, and I brushed this like a rubber, and made a mold of the clay hair that I did. And I poured resin in there, and I mixed the resin with dye to make it turn black, to have the black color around his hair. So all of that is resin. I was trying to, with this one, I wanted to like merge a little bit of abstraction with the figure. Still on this one, I didn't go as far as I have done with other paintings that I have used a figure and made them more abstract. This one, you can clearly see the figure. The rings that you see on his hands is a technique that I found. It's using hot glue and gold leaf. And you don't have to use any glue or anything to apply the gold leaf. The hot glue, the skin of the hot glue will just, once the gold leaf hits it, it automatically sticks to it.
Mhm. And
A lot of the hair is mixed in with rocks. I was trying to like blend the land with the figure. And if you can look, you can see I put little fishes in there in the background. And the background with the water, that's just resin with dye. When I first did the background, I did like spray paint. So I did like an ombre effect with like a lighter blue going into darker blue. Then on top of that is resin, dyed resin.
I appreciate you sharing your process, which is really fascinating. Now, some of this experimentation, was this of your own accord, Dariel, or was this something that you were inspired from other artists, or how did this come about with all these applying it specifically to the canvas?
So I did a couple paintings with just resin, no dyes and stuff. And at the time I made this painting, I was working at Michael's. So I was like getting inspired by the materials that was on the shelf. Seeing dyes and seeing a lot of things that I can do with resin, I wanted to see how far I can push this because I haven't worked with resin before in that capacity of using dyes and trying to make it look like water. This was just a experimental piece, I would say. There was no prior thing to use this for a show or anything like that.
Mhm. So the desire was birthed through working with resin and kind of, you know, you had some experience, it sounds like, with resin, just kind of like messing around, kind of getting your feet wet. And then you consider this more of an experimental piece.
Yes, ma'am.
Talk to us about what's going on visually with, now that we have a good idea of your process, what's going on visually? What are you aiming to communicate, Dariel?
One of my favorite artists is Kehinde Wiley, and he uses the black figure in these poses juxtaposed with luxury. So I kind of wanted to have that feel of that by making it one of those Greek statues, as the figure is like the top and it has that base as a statue at the bottom.
Mhm. And there is that strong urban flair that you love to bring in, that urban sophistication, that urban feel, because that is very distinct, I feel, in this. Do you agree, Dariel?
I totally agree. The hair reminds me of an African king or prince. Like I wanted it to feel very crown-like on his head.
Mhm. Mhm. So there's that sense of like regal and nobility kind of infused in there as well.
Yes.
Yeah. I have to tell you, Dariel, it was pretty amazing to stand in front of this when I was actually at the exhibit space at the Cultural Council. So it's really wonderful to now hear your commentary on it. It's a really striking, beautiful piece.
A lot of my pieces you kind of have to see in person to see the little nuances of this. Like even with this one, the sand is actually sand um, that I applied with the resin with glue and made it have heels. Um,
Mhm. And it's such an interesting composition with movement, you know, not just with the water, but with the form. There's this just a very flowing, there's just so much going on with this. It's really compelling, very striking.
the one thing I really love about this piece are the eyes. His eyes are very striking. He's when I look at him, he's like looking into my soul. And even that little tiny dot that's like the light, you know how when it hits your eye, the light, it's a little rock, the little tiny little rock that creates that little light that shines in the eye. Um, I really love that, that little extra little touch.
Yeah, yeah, it's fantastic. All right, let's move on to the next one.
So this is a great example of trying to use a figure, but not in a way that it looks screams figurative. A lot of this is faux painting, like with the sand. This one has a little bit of sand, not like the previous one where it has a lot of the real sand. This barely has any sand on it. And for the texture that I made, I was just using a toothbrush and just flicking the paint and creating form. So like where the arm bends to create the form, I was just taking a toothbrush with paint, oil paint on it, and just flicking it, trying to create from like a shadow, like a dark mid-tone to a light to create a form. So all of this is just mainly a toothbrush and me like flicking it on there. To create the face, I used rocks and sand. I wanted to feel like an aerial view of an island.
Oh, wow. Okay. Right. I can totally see that. And that's amazing. Just flicking the toothbrush with paint to get all the different mid-tones and to create the form. Now, were you working from a model, from a photograph, or was this just purely just kind of creating it as you were saying?
So what I do, like, if you ask my partner, I'm always on Instagram. So I would cruise through Instagram. Maybe before I go to bed, I just like scrolling through. And if I find an image that I like, I kind of send it to myself and like keep it in a little folder. And I'll pull from it when I'm going through to find figures that I want to like morph into each other. If I'm just using that one figure. For me, it's easier to paint someone that I don't know than painting someone I do know. There's not a lot of pressure per se.
Mhm. And what
But
about
I think this one came from like maybe like a Sports Illustrated, something with like uh in that realm.
Right, right, yeah. All right. Anything else you'd like to share about this one, Dariel, before we move to your next art piece?
No, ma'am. This one is pretty much done. This is really like similar to the previous one, as in technique and
Mhm. All right.
okay, so this is a great example of me morphing the figures into one. Like, I, at one point, this is an older piece too. Maybe I can't remember the year I did this to give you the correct year. But at one point, I was kind of like morphing them, trying to see how far I can like play with push and pull, mid ground, like foreground, background, and trying to see how far I can push that. This one's a really good one. I was trying to I wanted to paint on raw canvas. And with oil painting, you know that you can't really do that. The oils, after a while, they tend to eat through the fibers of the canvas. So like for this one, I primed the back of it and I let the face exposed. So I can get that canvas raw color. If you look in the guy's hair with the blue guy, he has it, the green guy has it in his hat. And throughout the piece, it comes through that raw canvas color that I have a lot. When I was doing this one, I had a lot of paintings that had that raw canvas color that peeked through the paint.
So it's like raw canvas color that's peeking through. And you mentioned this a couple times, Jared. You really like to push yourself through your art to see where it's going to go. And it sounds like you just stay really open, but you kind of have that in your mind and in your heart, like, let's take this to the max. Let's take this to the limit and just see where we get visually. Is that kind of in the right ballpark?
Yes. This one is actually called Love, Sex, and Water. And at the time, too, people was like, oh, why don't you do nudes? And like, nudes are very hard to sell. So I kind of wanted to do something where it is something that has some sexuality to it, but not just overtly sexual. But if you look in the guy's right shoulder, the one guy is like pulling up his pants. So it alludes to something, but not really. you kind of have to like find like things throughout this painting, which is really cool.
Right, like you really have to kind of like search and look. Like there's a lot that you're seeing, but you want the viewer to also kind of like take their time and kind of really move around the canvas and really see some different things that are there that may not be so obvious.
With this one, I found that works really, it's successful, is your eye floats around this painting in a circle, and it has that great movement to this piece. Your eye from one head to the other, it kind of makes a snake. So your eye dances with this one really well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. All right, Dariel, let's go to the next one. Okay.
This one, I no longer have this one. I actually sold this one years ago. This one was one of my favorite pieces for a long time. I was so infatuated with this guy's lips when I saw him. I was like, I have to paint this painting. So I painted a portrait of him. But the tassels in this piece are actually my high school tassels. So I actually used them to make this piece. The jacket is all embroidered, and it tells a story um, in his jacket. This is all real fur in there. It blows in the wind. It's a really cool piece. I had that fur when I was in college too, just in a bag, just like sitting in a drawer, just waiting to be used. I think this piece came out really well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I love how it all started. You were like in love with his lips, and the lips are really beautiful. Now, when you started to like adorn this piece with all the different materials that you were saying and the vision, did you have that in your mind, Daria? Like once you were like, okay, I'm gonna do a painting of him, a portrait. Did you know in advance like what you were going to incorporate in terms of the look, or did that happen during the painting process? Or can you tap us into a little bit about how that kind of manifests itself?
I kind of wanted to get back into embroidery. So I wanted to do a piece that this one wasn't super big. It's like, I would say like 25 by 25 is a square. So it's not super big. And I wanted to get back to embroidery. Because embroidery, you can take it anywhere you want to go. You can just be sitting at the beach and you can be sewing and you can put it in your bag off. So it was like, I can work and make artwork anytime I wanted to. It was not, I didn't have a time constraint of like when I can do it. I can do it on a lunch break, do a couple stitches here, a couple stitches there. So even with this one in the background, it's a form in the background is very faint, so you can't really see it. But I was like getting to that stage where I'm morphing. This is like be pre-morphing figures together. And you can kind of see it starting to happen in this one.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it also has that urban flair, urban sophistication, kind of a sense of regalness as well that you like to kind of put in your work.
I loved the hair on the figure when I saw him. It just reminded me of Basquiat. And then this one, I was trying to figure out like how is too far? Like even with the hair is really not really painted as well as the face. The face is really rendered really well. The hair is me painting a little bit and taking a napkin or a paper towel and taking away. So there's barely anything that's suggestive of really, sorry, not suggestive, like detail with the hair, but it really reads well. And I feel like you have to have a balance between like something that's super rendered and that's not like once you find a good balance, I think you're in the ballpark of making a good painting.
Love that.
Like John Singer Sargent, he does that a lot in his paintings. He will have something that's really rendered really nice, and then you'll see a spot that is like really what is the word? Like abstract in a way, but when you step back from the piece, it reads like it's a Chinese vase. You know what I'm trying to explain? That makes any sense?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. All right, that's beautiful. Okay.
This is getting into morphing and layers. I'm figuring out like with layering and layering, how far I can push and pull an image to the front ground, push it in the background. This one I wanted to get back like into drawing as well too. So all the city, the cars and the light pole, that's all drawing with oil pastel on top of the painting.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm curious, Dariel. We could just stop for a moment, because you have this beautiful like determination and exploratory way of really seeing again like how far you can go. Now, when you're actually in the painting, seeing how far you can go, whether it's the morphing or combining this or combining that or changing this and but keeping this, when you're actually in the creative process, Dariel, how do you know when it's too far? And then how do you know when you can still push yourself? Like where are those boundaries? Or is it just an internal knowing, visual? What, tell us about that.
That one is a really hard question because sometimes I don't know. And I had people told me before, you overwork that. And sometimes I could overwork something. It's like sometimes you overwork it, sometimes you don't. Like it's hard to figure out what's an even balance. To me, I gauge it if I like it, if the painting is done. Sometimes uh, it may not be done, and I'm truly happy of the result that I got, and I don't want to finish it. Um, so it's kind of like for artists that are watching this, that are coming up, you just gotta believe and trust in yourself. Sometimes it may not be done, but if it's done to you, who is it to say that it's not done?
Right, right. I love that. So you just get that feeling and you just stick with that, and that's perfectly good enough as is.
Yeah.
Mhm. Now, in terms of the composition, did you have this kind of like laid out in your mind? Did you do any preliminary sketches? Did you just dive right in, or tap into the composition if you would?
So this one I kind of dive right in. There wasn't. I started with the male figure first, and I just started to like. I added the two female figures, painted it, not well done, just like painted, got some paint on the canvas. And then from there, I started drawing on top of the painting. So I didn't really plan out anything for this one. I just kind of like got into the zone and just started creating. And a lot of the times when I am creating, I'm not conscious. Like I'm conscious in a way that I'm making something, but not conscious in a way that I'm really focused on what I'm doing. I'm just letting it happen, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
Because
so
most of the time people actually like, how did you do this? And I'm like, it kind of just happened. I kind of got like, it's like not in my body type of thing. And it's the work is getting made.
Oh, Dariel, I love that. It's so beautiful. It's just like flowing through you. You know, I'm wondering, can you give us just like a percentage? Like with this piece, you were saying you just like dove right in, you know, and a lot of the pieces, you know, you're just letting it happen. And, but there's also, you know, as we've been discussing, there's also some, you know, thought going on as well, like, you know, looking and kind of feeling and some, you know, mental thought processes going on. How much of your art, let's just say currently, do you just go in and dive in and let it happen, and then
So,
what? Yeah.
so the initial, like the key to start the car is the photographs. So I'll get some photographs, like, I'm going to use 3 of these photographs. I got 10 of them. I really enjoy the flow, the way the body is. It's something that attracts me to this picture, whether it's male or female, something is attracting me to this picture. So I pick the ones that I'm attracted to, whether it's sexually, visually, something is attracting me to the picture. So I pick the pictures, and from there, I figure out how am I going to put this on this canvas and make it flow. From picking the figures and then drawing them on the canvas, because sometimes I'll draw them on the canvas and they don't work, and I just gesso it and start again. I know that I want to use these 3 images, well, 4 images. I have a picture of the city, I have 2 girls and a guy. I want to use all these pictures in this painting. So that's kind of like me kind of making a little assignment, because sometimes you just don't have, you don't know what you want to paint. You want to do something, but you have no concentration. You have like like a clear idea of what you're trying to do. So that's how I do it. I make a little assignment for me. I'm like, oh, I'm going to use these 4 images. How can I make this a successful painting by using these 4 images? And that can be the initiation to actually start the car, to start driving, is picking out some images. You know, I want to paint a tree and I really love this tree. And that's how you can start a painting. Because sometimes I don't know what to paint or how to start or what I'm going to do. So sometimes if that happens to me, I kind of like, okay, I have these images. I know I want to paint. Let's go for it.
I love that, Dariel. Thank you for sharing that. All right.
Oh, this one is a really cool one. This is actually a crate from I do art handling now. So this is like was a crate from a sculpture or something that it's just like a side of the crate. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna take this home. So I took that piece home and I was like painting on top of that. And my sister had some hair and I was like, oh, maybe I want to use some of this hair to make something really interesting. So I kind of painted the figure and I was like, you know, I want to apply the hair and make it look real. And the way it falls well. You can't see any tracks when it blows in the wind. It has that movement. And it just adds another layer to the paintings. It makes them feel a little more real in a sense. This is one of the first ones I was playing with hair. I have several of them I've been playing with hair a lot. But these ones people kind of get scared of. They're fun to look at. I think as trying to make work to sell at some point, not just making work to make work. These ones are hard to sell. How you keep the maintenance, and real collectors will love these ones. But people that are first-time collectors will be hesitant to buy a painting like this.
So you have a deep understanding, Dariel, of what potentially more than likely is going to sell and then what isn't. And it seems like you strike a balance between creating for yourself what feels right, what you want to express, and then also with the acknowledgement of the satisfaction of also selling work and being receiving payment for your art as well.
For me, when I was younger, I never thought about that. As I get older, you kind of have to keep the viewer in mind as well, because then you tend to just make work for yourself. It's good to like be happy with a piece, but you also want to show it. And for me, I feel like a good gratification is when somebody wants to purchase and they love it as much as I do. So I do want to keep them in the back of my mind as well when I'm making work.
Yeah.
I would say don't keep it in the front of the mind, because then it stops you from actually creating anything. If you're always thinking about if somebody's going to buy it or not going to buy it, you want to just keep it in the back, think about it, but don't have that as the main part in your mind to be thinking about selling, because then it stops the work from happening.
Yes, absolutely. All right, let's take a look at one more. Okay.
Oh, this is another one with hair. This one right now I'm actually looking at it in my room, and she has straight hair now. I have flat ironed it. She has straight hair. But this is another piece that kind of got some hair from my sister. She had an old wig, and I was like, oh, this is a lace wig. I wonder if I can actually apply this and make it look like it's growing out of this painting. And actually worked really well. This painting, a lot of people love this painting. With this one, when the hair blows, there are another image in there. There's another woman and it's a little boy in there. So when the hair blows, you get another view of 2 other figures in this piece. You can see the one guy's eye underneath the curl, the little boy.
Right.
And then when you look up through her neck, another woman's there. She has glasses. And this is another one that I did a lot of the gold leaf with the hot glue gun. Like I found that it worked. I was using hot glue on another section of a painting, and the gold leaf touched it, and it just stick to it and was like, oh wow, it looks like melted gold. And then from there I was like, oh, maybe I'll use this technique some more. So it was like a happy accident, I must say.
Mhm. Yeah, it's beautiful, so beautiful. And I'm going to stop the screen share. You have such a distinct style, Dariel. I'm wondering, can you touch upon um, your style in terms of finding your artistic voice, which feels, right now that it's very strong, and it's like I would feel like if I was out and about, I would easily be able to identify one of your works. Talk to us about finding your artistic voice, those that are painters and really, any artist, but, being a visual artist yourself and very talented. Talk to us about your finding your voice, a little bit of the evolution of that, and then if you have any recommendations.
That's a hard question. Oh, how did I find my voice? I knew that I liked painting faces. I was really good at painting faces. Um, then I learned like the face is so recognizable and a lot of people can find a face in anything. So I kind of like wanted to, I'm gonna answer this question. It's a very hard question. Ugh. How did I find my voice? I think with my family being from the Virgin Islands, and having the island culture, it kind of infused the work into my work, and fashion infused a lot into my work. So that's how I started off, like with just drawing clothes and stuff like that. And it still kind of pokes its head out in my paintings, the fashion aspect of it. I started off like just doodling, like drawing clothes from clothes. I got into the figure, and then from the figure, it just drawing, and it became like painting. And then that's all I wanted to do was paint the figure. I don't know if that answered the question or not.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. And I'm wondering if we can touch upon also, you like to use your art form also as a platform for some messages that you feel very strongly about. Talk to us how you use your art as a platform. I know it's for unity, for diversity, and for equality. Now that we've looked at a select view of your work, tell us how you incorporate that message and why that's important to you, if you would.
For me, growing up and seeing Black figures in paintings was like far and in between. I remember my last year in college, I was like, oh, I wanna paint fairy tales, but I'm gonna make all my characters Black. So I started doing that, and I was like, and I found like, oh, maybe I wanna maybe do this more, like um, just putting the Black figure in the paintings. Like if I don't do it, maybe somebody else wouldn't do it as well. So maybe I can maybe start something that isn't there. Um, Going into museums as a kid, I never like you rarely see any Black people on the paintings on the wall, and I kind of was like, I'm gonna put some on the wall.
Oh, I love that. You're going to put some on the wall. That's great. And it's such a beautiful vision. We have a few more minutes. I just love to touch upon your creativity. I mean, you bring so much to your art, not in terms of the materials that you use and your your skill and your talent and portraying the human form and how you morph everything and merge everything together. And let's highlight the creativity. And you've spoken a lot about your process, but tap us into your creativity, which is just so fascinating and so like multi-leveled and comes across in such an interesting way. Can you share with us about that?
For me, I feel like sometimes most artists kind of get into like I'm a painter and I only really paint. I feel like sometimes it's good to like step outside of your comfort zone. That's why I want to try embroidery and knitting and just try different things and see if that actually, if I can use it in a painting. Sometimes it may never work. Like even with the resin, sometimes it doesn't work. And with resin, once you put it on, there's no coming off. So it's like sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But I like to do something that's just outside of my comfort zone. Maybe I want to learn a new technique. Um, so sometimes that like helps pushed me to try something different. Like even with the hair, applying hair, I didn't know if it was gonna work. Like how I'm gonna glue this hair on this painting to make it look real and have all the, in my head, I had the painting done and I see the hair on there, but it's actually the process of actually applying it and seeing if it actually works. And I have done paintings where the hair, it's like, it don't work.
Mhm.
It's on there, it just doesn't look good. And the painting isn't working, it's something off. And that's how I learned from some screw ups to do some good stuff later.
Mhm. Well, that was interesting, Dariel. You said you already see it in your mind, and then it's really the process, like, like you were saying, experimenting with the hair and with other things. And you seem to have this real fluidity and this real openness. And I think that your openness to experiment and just to try things, that leaves open like the floodgates of your creativity. Like you were saying, like, okay, you don't want to just be like a painter. It's like you kind of push yourself. You have this like artistic fire is kind of what it feels like. Like you want to experiment and you want to try things, and you seem very easy. Like you're saying, like sometimes, like, with the resin, it was like, forget it, and you try it again and then again. But you don't seem to get like hung up on the the process, so to speak. You just, in other words, like you just keep kind of going with it. And with the hair, you didn't even know, and sometimes it didn't work out as you were saying, but it's going to eventually. And you just kind of have this like beautiful way of just exploring art and materials and creativity.
I have to give definitely the credit to Dreyfoos School of Arts and my college, MSFA, because they kind of pushed us to do different stuff. Like you had to do painting, you did photography, you did sculpture. Like it kind of forced you to get uncomfortable to get comfortable. You don't know what you really like until you try everything and figure out like maybe I don't like that. But I do have to give a lot of the credit to Dreyfus and to my college that I went to, because they kind of made you think outside of the box. And sometimes you win some and you lose some. That's how I always figure my painting. Sometimes you win some, lose. And what I like is not what somebody else might like as well too. I might find a painting awful and it's ugly, and somebody finds something beautiful about it that I don't see. So sometimes when I feel like you'll think, oh, this painting is not good, I'm pretty sure somebody might like it as well. So your mess ups might not be a mess up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what a great way to look at and view art. And it's so beautiful, Dariel. We do need to move into wrapping the show up. So we always offer our guests the closing comments. So if there's anything else that you'd like to share. And I'm also, if you don't mind, Dariel, if you could speak to painters that are watching this at whatever level that they're at. You've given us such fruitful insight and information, and of course, insight into you and your particular artistic journey. But what would you like to share with painters that are watching this?
The one thing I want to share with painters that are watching this, a lot of people see my paintings like, oh, you're so good. Um, Painting, whatever you do, if it's cooking, painting, time is the essence. They like, I don't paint as good as you. I'm like, you could. Painting all the time is what helped me perfect my craft and to get better. Like, don't look at yourself and beat yourself down and look at other artists. I'm not on that level, because you could be. Time is the essence. You could do it, and time is what makes anything get better.
So I really,
The more time you take on something, you're gonna get better at it, no matter what it is.
right. So it's the discipline, the time, the dedication is what you're saying, is really just, stick with that. And then that's going to really make it.
And just have fun doing it. The biggest thing, more than time, more than experience. If you're having fun and you're enjoying doing it, just create and make work. Like I think that's the biggest thing. I think a lot of younger artists are thinking about selling and thinking about getting into shows. That it will come. The shows, the selling, it's gonna come. I think as long as you're having fun making work, I think the work is, people are going to see the enjoyment that you are enjoying doing what you're doing, because they're going to see it in the work.
Yeah. I love that, Daryl, adding that element of fun and really saying that that really presides over everything.
For me, I always view my paintings as a relationship. You know, you have your ups and downs. I have taking breaks before, like, "Ah, I'm gonna take a break. I don't want to paint anymore." But I always come back to it. It's a relationship. I view it as like a boyfriend, girlfriend. Like that's how I view my work ethic and my practice in making paintings.
I love that, Daryl. All right, so we do need to close the show out. If you have any other thing that maybe we haven't touched upon in regard to your art and your journey, and let us know how we can stay connected with you.
You can stay connected with me. My Instagram is drell15, so it's gonna be DRELL15. I post a lot of work on there as well. Also, you can find me on my Facebook. It's just my first and last name. And the one thing I wanted to say too, this is just to add, like I said, I view my work as a relationship, and I always told myself, once I'm not having fun anymore, I'll stop painting. But to me, I'm still enjoying painting. I still get butterflies in my stomach to paint. So there's something there that's calling me. So
Yeah, absolutely. Dariel, this has been such a fantastic journey diving into your art and your process, your mind, your heart, and all the different aspects. It's just been so inspiring, and I appreciate everything that you shared. Are there any current projects or upcoming that you would like to share before we close out?
I'm trying to come out with a bathing suit line that I've been working on for a little while now that I'm trying to launch pretty soon. So it's going to be bathing suits, and I also have like a pillow line that I'm coming out with that's called Pillow Talk. So I think it's gonna this summer some things are gonna happen. So if you guys follow me on Instagram, I'll definitely keep you guys in tune of what's happening and what's to come.
All right.
But the swimwear is gonna be mainly for girls, the female swimwear. I'm also trying to do male swimsuits, but right now I'm gonna focus on the women, and then later on I'll bring out some men's swim trunks and speedos and stuff like that.
Well, we'll be excited to see that whole line. So stay connected with us and let us know what's going on with that when everything's is ready and good to go. And
Oh,
much
cool. I
success.
will definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And much success with everything. And thank you so much for being our guest today, Dariel on Art and
Thank
Talk.
you for having me. I'm so happy that you was my first interviewer. This is amazing. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Definitely our honor. Thank you. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching Art and Talk. This does conclude our final artist interview of the series we've been bringing to you from the Being Heard, Being Seen exhibit at the Cultural Council for Palm Beach County. A huge thank you to the Cultural Council for Palm Beach County and the amazing artists that have come on board Art and Talk to share your art and your passion and your journey with us. And much success to all of you. Those of you who are in the South Florida area, if you have not checked out the Cultural Council for Palm Beach County Being Heard, Being Seen exhibit in Lake Worth Beach, Florida, it runs until April 9th, so do check that out. If you're interested in checking the exhibit out, but you're not local to the South Florida area, you can go on to the website for the Cultural Council for Palm Beach County and just click on current exhibit, and you can check out all the artists that are exhibiting and find out a little bit more information. All right, so thank you again for being with us today, and we'll talk soon on the next Art and Talk. Until then, be well and be blessed.